Today, we honor Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the Iron Man of India, whose vision and resolve united a nation. With unmatched courage and practical wisdom, Patel led the integration of hundreds of princely states, shaping modern India. Join us as we revisit the journey of a leader whose strength, integrity, and dedication built the foundation of our unity and democracy. Sardar Patel, it is an immense honor to have you with us. Thank you for speaking with me today.
Thank you. I am pleased to be here. After all these years, to speak of my journey and my beloved India once more. It is my pleasure.
Let's start at the very beginning. You were born in 1875 in Nadiad, Gujarat. Can you paint us a picture of your childhood and early life? What experiences shaped the young Vallabhbhai Patel?
I was born into a humble farmer's family in Gujarat, one of 6 children. My father, Javarbhai, was a simple man, but with a warrior's heart. Family lore says he had fought in the Great Indian Rebellion of 1857, serving in Rani Lakshmibai's army against the British. That fighting spirit ran in our blood.
Incredible. So patriotism and courage were part of your legacy even before you were born.
Perhaps so. From a young age, I learned the value of self-reliance and resilience. I traveled between small village schools in Nadiad, Petlad, Borsad, often on my own, living with other boys and cooking our simple meals. Life was not easy. We had to be tough. There's an old story often told about my childhood. I once had a painful boil that needed lancing, and the village barber was shaking with fear to cut it. I took the knife and lanced it myself without hesitation. I suppose that showed I had a stoic streak even then.
You operated on your own boil as a boy? That's remarkable, and a little frightening. It certainly speaks to your courage and pain tolerance.
It was just a boil. But yes, it taught me that endurance would carry me through anything. I was actually a late bloomer in studies. I passed my high school matriculation at the age of 22. By then I was married, and even a father.
You married early?
I was about 16 when I married Javerba, as was the custom. We later had 2 children, a daughter, Manaben, in 1903, and a son, Dahyabai, in 1905. Alongside family life, I nurtured a quiet ambition. People thought I'd settle for a modest job, but inside, I was determined to become a lawyer. I studied on my own, borrowing law books, and passed the exams to qualify as a pleader in just 2 years.
So by your early 20s, you were a lawyer and a family man. You set up practice in Gujarat?
Yes. I established my household in Godhra and started practicing law in places like Godhra, Borsad, and Anand. Over the years, through hard work, I earned a reputation as a fierce and skilled lawyer. My advocacy was straightforward and tough. I didn't shy away from challenging the opposition in court.
They called you a fierce lawyer even then. I can only imagine the tenacity you showed in the courtroom. But you had even bigger plans, didn't you? I recall you dreamed of going to England to become a barrister.
Indeed. It was an ambition I held on to tightly. I saved money for years to go to England for the advanced law training. My older brother Vithalbhai had the same dream. In fact, when I finally could afford the trip and secured my papers, they arrived addressed to V.J. Patel, which could mean either of us, as we shared initials. Vithalbhai, being older, felt it would hurt our family honor if he, the elder, followed in my footsteps. So I let him go in my place. Family comes first.
That was a selfless decision, giving up your hard-earned chance for your brother's pride.
It was only right. I bided my time and continued expanding my practice. But fate had its tests. In 1909, my wife Javerba fell gravely ill with cancer. We admitted her to a hospital in Bombay. She underwent surgery. It seemed successful, but suddenly her condition worsened. She passed away on the hospital bed without warning.
I'm so sorry. That must have been a devastating moment for you.
It was the greatest personal loss of my life. I was in the middle of cross-examining a witness in court when I got the telegram. I opened the note. It said my beloved wife was no more. I took a breath, put the note in my pocket, and continued my cross-examination as if nothing had happened. I won that case. Only after the proceedings did I quietly tell my friends that I had lost her.
You bore that news in silence until your duty in court was done. That level of self-control and commitment is unbelievable, Sardar. To carry on despite such heartbreak, it shows your inner steel.
On the outside, I was steel, yes. Inside, I was broken. But I decided then that I would never remarry. Javerba was my partner, and if fate took her, I would devote myself to our children and my work. My family helped raise my son and daughter, and I ensured they got modern education in Bombay. At age 36, I finally sailed to England to fulfill my dream. I enrolled at the Middle Temple Inn of Court in London. 3 years of studies. I finished in just 30 months, topping the class despite never having attended college before. I became a barrister, and when I returned to India in 1913, I came back not just with a degree, but with a broadened perspective.
Top of your class in London, without prior college. That's extraordinary. You returned as a polished barrister, ready to conquer the legal world. And you did. You established yourself in Ahmedabad as one of the most successful lawyers of the time, correct?
Yes. In Ahmedabad, I lived like an English gentleman at first. European suits, a taste for fine things. I worked hard and earned well. By the early 1910s, my goal was to provide a good life for my children, accumulate some wealth, maybe play a good game of bridge in the evenings. Politics or freedom fighting were not on my mind. In fact, I was somewhat skeptical of agitators at first.
That's fascinating. To imagine Sardar Patel once focused only on personal success. So, what changed that? What pulled you from a comfortable life into the fire of the freedom struggle?
Mahatma Gandhi. In 1917, Gandhi was traveling across India, inspiring people with the idea of Swaraj, self-rule. That year, I happened to attend a lecture in Borsad, where I spoke about the need for Indians to sign a petition for self-rule. Soon after, I met Gandhiji for the first time at a conference in Godhra. The impact he had on me was profound. Here was a man who had renounced wealth and comfort for our motherland's freedom. He gently encouraged me to involve myself in public service. I became the secretary of the Gujarat Sabha, a public forum that became the Gujarat arm of the Congress. Then came the Kheda Satyagraha in 1918. Kheda district was reeling from failed crops and plague. The British still demanded land taxes in full. The peasants begged for relief and were refused. Gandhiji launched a non-violent resistance there, but he was busy elsewhere and needed someone to lead the farmers. He asked for a devoted volunteer. I stood up and said, "I will do it." It meant I had to sacrifice my lucrative legal practice, my comfortable life, everything, to lead illiterate peasants in a fight against the mighty British Empire. It was not a quick decision. Inside, I battled my own doubts, but ultimately, I could not ignore the call of my people. That moment changed my life.
You volunteered on the spot to lead the Kheda campaign. A successful barrister choosing farmers over fortune. That was a turning point. Tell us about Kheda. How did you manage to get relief for those peasants?
We organized a tax refusal movement. I traveled from village to village in Kheda, explaining to farmers their rights and the power of unity. I told them, if we all refuse to pay these unjust taxes, the government cannot imprison us all. But we must be resolute, united, and strictly nonviolent, no matter the provocation. That was critical. Discipline and nonviolence. When we launched the protest, thousands of farmers stood firm. The British authorities sent police to seize property. They would confiscate cattle, seize crops, even entire farms, to scare people into paying. We organized a secret network to help villagers hide their grain and cattle, and to stay one step ahead of the police raids. Yes, many were arrested and harassed, but not one village broke the pledge. Our solidarity was our shield.
That unity must have been incredible. How did it end? Did the British relent?
They did. After months, the colonial government finally blinked. They opened negotiations with me. In the end, they suspended the tax for that year and even reduced the rate going forward. It was a victory for the peasants of Kedah. For the first time, these simple farmers realized that together we had power. When news of our success spread, I became something of a hero in Gujarat, though I cared less for fame and more for what it meant. That non-violent resistance worked.
Kedah proved that firmness and unity could win against injustice. And it pulled you deeper into the freedom movement, I imagine.
Absolutely. In 1920, I became the president of the Gujarat Pradesh Congress Committee, a post I'd hold for the next 25 years. When Gandhi launched the non-cooperation movement that year, I threw myself behind it. I traveled all over Gujarat, recruiting hundreds of thousands of members for Congress and raising funds to sustain the movement. We organized bonfires of British goods, symbolic burnings of foreign cloth. I remember casting all my European-style clothes into the flames, the suits, ties, everything, and switching to khadi, our homespun cotton, along with my young children. It was a proud moment, embracing simplicity for freedom.
You donned the coarse khadi and lived the freedom struggle in deed, not just words. That was also when Gandhi decided to suspend the non-cooperation movement in 1922 after violence broke out at Chowri Chowra. Some leaders were unhappy, but you stood by Gandhi's decision, didn't you?
Yes. It was painful to pause the momentum, but Gandhiji was right. Our struggle had to remain nonviolent, or we would lose moral high ground. I supported his decision wholeheartedly. In the years that followed, I worked on many fronts, fighting social ills like alcoholism, untouchability, caste discrimination, and encouraging women's empowerment, all while continuing to strengthen Congress at the local level. I served as the president of the Ahmedabad municipality multiple times in the 1920s. We did important work there, expanding electricity, modernizing drainage and sanitation, improving schools. I've always believed that self-rule must also better people's day-to-day lives, so I took governance seriously wherever I had responsibility.
A freedom fighter who builds drainage systems and schools? That's wonderfully pragmatic. You weren't just opposing the British, you were already building the nation from the ground up.
Nation building begins at home, in our communities. We had to prove we could govern ourselves better than the colonial rulers. In 1923, while Gandhiji was in prison, a law was imposed banning Indians from flying our flag in public. I was asked to lead a protest in Nagpur. I mobilized thousands of volunteers from all corners of India. We marched in defiance, waving our tricolor flag, courting arrest deliberately. The jails overflowed with our people. Finally, I negotiated a settlement. All prisoners were released, and, importantly, the ban was lifted so we could proudly hoist our flag. That was a small but significant victory for national dignity.
Another triumph, claiming our right to our flag. And then came Bardoli in 1928, one of the defining moments of your journey. The name Bardoli is practically synonymous with Sardar Patel. Please tell us about the Bardoli Satyagraha and how it earned you the title Sardar.
Bardoli. Ah, yes. Bardoli is a taluka in Gujarat that faced a dire situation in 1928. Not only had crops failed in a famine, but the colonial government imposed a steep 30% tax hike on the land, harsher even than what we resisted in Kedah. The farmers were desperate. I went to Bardoli, studied the situation thoroughly. I spoke to villagers, examined crop yields, and concluded that this increase was unjust and impossible to pay. So, we launched a complete non-payment of taxes, another satyagraha. We organized camps to guide villagers, and a robust information network so each village knew how others were holding up. The peasants showed remarkable courage. Even as authorities seized their lands and property, they did not back down. Many were evicted from their homes. Their determination only grew. Women especially were pillars of strength. They urged their men to stay strong, often taunting those who wavered by asking if they'd lost their courage.
It sounds like the entire community was galvanized, men and women alike, enduring so much.
Indeed, the unity in Bardoli was ironclad. Finally, after months of standoff, the pressure was too much for the government. Through some sympathetic intermediaries, they approached us to talk. By August 1928, we reached a settlement. The tax hike was canceled, all confiscated properties were returned, and the officials who had resigned in protest got their jobs back. It was a total victory for the farmers and those incredible women of Bardoli. As news spread that we had won, they started calling me Sardar. In Gujarati, it means chief or leader. I'll never forget a group of village women saying, "You led us like a true Sardar, so Sardar is your name now." The name stuck. From then on, across India, I was known as Sardar Patel.
The title was so fitting, earner of people's trust, a leader of leaders. Bardoli made you a national figure.
What I cherish is not the fame of a title, but the trust and love it represented. Bardoli showed the British that the Indian people could not be crushed if they stood together peacefully. It also showed our own people the value of disciplined struggle. After Bardoli, even the Viceroy admitted that the Sardar had led a well-organized movement.
By this time, you were a top leader in the Indian National Congress, working closely with Mahatma Gandhi. You two seemed like an inseparable duo in the freedom movement. Could you share more about your relationship with Gandhiji? What was the dynamic between you and him, especially during those crucial years?
Gandhiji was like an elder brother to me, a guide, a friend, sometimes a critic, always a well-wisher. We didn't always agree on everything initially, but prison has a way of forging understanding. In early 1932, after the failure of the Round Table Talks, Gandhiji and I were jailed together in Yeravada Central Prison. We spent long hours discussing the future of our country, social issues, philosophical questions. Bapu, Gandhi, even taught me Sanskrit during those days in jail. We read the Hindu epics together. We also laughed and joked to keep our spirits up. It was there that our bond deepened into something like family. He, the visionary, with a heart of a saint. I, the practical organizer, with a duty to execute that vision. He called me his younger brother, and I saw him as my mentor.
That image, two of India's giants sitting in a prison cell, reading scriptures and planning the fate of a nation, It's poignant. It seems you balanced each other. Gandhiji the idealist, you the pragmatist. Did you ever have serious disagreements?
Oh, we had our debates. For instance, I was not fully convinced by some of Pandit Nehru's socialist proclamations in the mid-1930s. I felt they were premature when our immediate goal was independence. Gandhiji often mediated between differing views. And in 1939, when Subhas Chandra Bose was Congress president and was pushing in directions away from Gandhian nonviolence, I led the opposition that ultimately led Bose to resign. Some felt I was too harsh then, but I believed unity of purpose was paramount. We could not afford a split in our ranks when the freedom struggle was at its peak. Gandhiji's principles had to hold the party together, and I defended them firmly.
It sounds like you were the firm hand that kept the Congress unified and on course. As World War II came and went, the demand for independence reached a fever pitch. In 1942, the Congress launched the Quit India movement, a final mass uprising to force the British out. And you, Sardar, played a crucial role in that historic moment.
Quit India, yes. By 1942, it was clear the British would have to leave. The question was when and under what conditions. Initially, during the war, some of us, like Pandit Nehru and I, were willing to support the British war effort if they promised full independence after the war. But Churchill's government spurned even that offer. Gandhiji was adamant that we must not support war, and Subhas Bose had gone abroad seeking military options. There was no more room for compromise. I realized that an all-out rebellion was needed to show the British that we Indians would no longer patiently wait or be divided by their tactics. I was one of the first to demand an immediate Quit India movement. I argued passionately in the Congress Working Committee that the time for action was now, that if we didn't strike while the British were weakened by war, we might never get another chance. I was even prepared to resign from Congress if we refused to act. Gandhiji agreed on the campaign, and on the 7th of August 1942, we passed the Quit India resolution in Bombay.
That was the moment you delivered one of the most electrifying speeches of your life, wasn't it? A crowd of over 100,000 gathered at Gawalia Tank Maidan in Bombay to hear you speak that day.
Yes. The atmosphere was unbelievable. Tens of thousands of people, knowing we might all be arrested or worse the next day, yet filled with courage. I told them that the British had cynically promised freedom to other nations, but not India, and that we would accept nothing less than immediate independence. I warned that the Japanese were approaching India's borders amid the war, and we had to win freedom before another foreign invader came. And I urged every Indian, even if all of us leaders were jailed, to fight on, to use every resource, no source to be left untapped, no weapon untried, but within the bounds of nonviolence. It was a call to action, the opportunity of a lifetime to free India.
Those words lit a fire across the nation. Historians say that speech of yours truly galvanized the people, convincing even the skeptics that Quit India had to be all or nothing.
So they say. Personally, I felt a great weight lift as I spoke, as if we had finally shed any lingering hesitation. And indeed, the very next day, the British arrested us all. On 9th of August 1942, Gandhiji, Nehru, Maulana Azad, myself, the entire Congress leadership, we were all rounded up before dawn and sent to prison. I was incarcerated at a fort in Ahmednagar for nearly 3 years.
Those were dark years. The country was leaderless, yet boiling with anger. How did you cope in jail, knowing the movement was raging outside?
In Ahmednagar Fort Prison, we tried to keep our minds sharp and spirits up. We weren't idle, we read extensively, walked in the courtyard for exercise, spun khadi thread on the charkha, spinning wheel, to stay connected to the cause. We even played bridge to pass time, oddly enough. I also offered what emotional support I could to my comrades. Many were anxious for news of their families and the movement. We heard bits and pieces, how fierce the Quit India uprising was, how tens of thousands were jailed, how violence erupted in places and was brutally crushed. It pained me deeply to learn that our dear friend Mahadev Desai, Gandhiji's secretary, died of a heart attack in prison just days after our arrest, and later Kasturba Gandhi, Bapu's wife, passed away in detention in early 1944. Those were heavy blows. Bapu himself went on a hunger strike in jail, and we feared for his life. By the grace of God, he survived. I remember writing to my daughter Mani from prison, saying that despite all the sorrow, we felt a sense of peace, because we had done our duty to the fullest. We had risked everything for India's freedom, and that gave us inner strength.
What an incredible resolve. By the time you were released in 1945, World War II had ended, and it was clear the British would finally leave. But then, India faced the terrible question of partition. The unity you fought for was threatened by communal tensions between Hindus and Muslims. Sardar, you were one of the first Congress leaders to reconcile to the idea of partition as a solution, even before some others did. That couldn't have been easy. How did you come to that stance?
That was one of the most agonizing decisions of my life. We had spent decades fighting for a united India, one nation. The very thought of partition, of carving the land into India and Pakistan, was painful. But by 1946-47, reality was staring us in the face. The Muslim League under Jinnah was adamant on creating Pakistan. The provincial elections of 1946 showed that while Congress had the support of most Indians, the League had won over the vast majority of Muslim voters. The country was deeply polarized. Then came Direct Action Day in August 1946, Jinnah's call for demonstrations, which ignited horrendous Hindu-Muslim riots, especially the Great Calcutta Killing. Communal violence was spreading like wildfire. As the interim Home Minister in 1947, I tried to contain it, but the British Viceroy's government often tied our hands, vetoing strong measures in the name of constitutional propriety while the killings went on. It was infuriating and heartbreaking. I came to believe that a negotiated partition might be better than an explosion of civil war. I feared that if we attempted to force unity, the entire country could bleed. A choice between one division and many divisions, I remember saying. The alternative to partition could be India breaking into multiple pieces, not just Hindu-Muslim, but also provincial fragments, even armed tribes and princely states going their own way. That nightmare forced me to accept that Pakistan, as painful as it was, might be the lesser evil compared to endless internecine strife.
You saw it as cutting off a limb to save the body, perhaps. You even convinced leaders like Nehru, who were initially opposed, to agree to the partition plan of June 3, 1947. And you had long discussions with Gandhiji, who was deeply hurt by the idea of dividing the country.
Those were very difficult conversations. Bapu was heartbroken. Vivisection of Mother India, he called it. I sat with him and explained the realities, the mutual hatred that the League's propaganda had sown, the blood already spilled, the impossibility of governing a country where one part refuses to cooperate with the other. He listened silently. In the end, he gave his blessing to whatever the Congress decided, though his soul wept. At the All India Congress Committee meeting in June 1947, I made a speech to the delegates. I said, "Nobody likes the division of India. My heart is heavy. But the choice is between one division and many. We must not let emotion cloud our judgment. The prolongation of a weak and divided government will only lead to more fragmentation. Whether we like it or not, de facto Pakistan already exists in parts of the country. Let us make it de jure and move on to build our nation with the remaining 75 to 80% of India. It was a blunt message, but it convinced the party. Congress approved the partition plan.
And so, partition happened. In August 1947, India and Pakistan were born, freedom and pain, hand in hand. The communal violence that followed was one of the darkest chapters in our history. Millions displaced, hundreds of thousands killed. How did you, as Home Minister, cope with this chaos? What were those days like for you?
Those days haunt me. We achieved freedom at midnight on August 15th, 1947. But dawn broke on a subcontinent in flames. Punjab was bleeding with Hindu, Muslim, Sikh clashes. Bengal was torn. Refugees were pouring across the new borders in both directions. Desperate, terrified. As Home Minister, I had an overwhelming task: maintain law and order, help refugees, and prevent the violence from engulfing the whole nation. I took swift action where I could. In Delhi, where tensions were high, I called in the army to patrol the streets. I specifically brought in units from South India, soldiers who had no communal stake in the local Hindu-Muslim issue, to ensure impartial enforcement of curfews and to shoot rioters on sight if necessary. We imposed strict curfews in affected areas. I visited relief camps and riot-torn neighborhoods personally. For instance, thousands of Muslims had taken shelter around the Nizamuddin Dargah in Delhi, fearing attacks. I went there, prayed at the shrine, met the people, and assured them of protection, posting extra police to guard them. I also took a controversial step. I censored news of atrocities against Hindus and Sikhs coming from Pakistan. It wasn't that I didn't care. I cared deeply. But I knew if those horrors were splashed in our press, it would fuel retaliatory violence against innocent Muslims in India. We had to break the cycle of hatred.
You were trying to hold the country together with your bare hands, it sounds like. And indeed, Delhi calmed down under your tough measures. But in Punjab, especially around Amritsar, there were reports of planned attacks on Muslim refugee convoys leaving for Pakistan, correct?
Yes. In September 1947, I received alarming reports. Some vengeful Sikh groups in Punjab were readying to attack trains and caravans of Muslims fleeing west. I knew such massacres would trigger endless revenge from the other side. So I flew to Punjab, met with Sikh and Hindu community leaders directly. I implored them, this violence is not bravery, it's dishonor. I argued that harming defenseless people would only bring shame and more tragedy on our own communities in Pakistan. I remember telling the assembled leaders and an angry crowd of refugees, if we must fight, let's fight as honorable men, not by murdering innocents who have sought our protection. Let there be a truce. Let the refugees pass safely for some time. Help them. Don't kill them. If we break this cycle for even a week, maybe sanity will return. I practically begged them to hold their hand for at least a short time and escort the Muslim refugees safely to the border.
And they listened, didn't they? History notes that after your intervention and heartfelt speech in Amritsar, the large-scale attacks ceased. You managed to bring a measure of peace to Punjab at a critical moment.
Thankfully, yes. The leaders there pledged to restrain their folk, and convoys started moving with protection instead of ambushes. It was one bright spot in that dark time. But I must be candid. I faced criticism from all sides for my actions then. Some of Nehru's and Gandhiji's circle worried that I was too unsympathetic to Muslims because I spoke of exchanging populations frankly. They thought I wanted all Muslims out of India, which was not true. On the other side, many Hindus and Sikhs accused me of not doing enough to avenge or protect their people in Pakistan, or of shielding local Muslims while our folks suffered. It was impossible to please everyone. Yet I knew in my heart that we had to uphold the idea of India, a secular, just India, even amid the carnage. And that meant protecting innocence of all communities under our flag. In that, Pandit Nehru and I were completely united.
You bore those criticisms and still did what you thought was right. History vindicates that without your decisive actions, the death toll could have been even higher. Now, even as partition riots were being doused, another monumental challenge lay before you: integrating the princely states. When the British left, more than 565 princely states, large and small kingdoms, were technically free to choose joining India, Pakistan, or remaining independent. India as a union could have been shattered if they didn't all join the Indian Republic. Sardar, this is often called your greatest achievement. Could you tell us how you accomplished the integration of these princely states?
Certainly. On the eve of independence, the princely states were the biggest threat to a united India. If even a handful had stayed independent or gone off to the other dominion, India would have been a patchwork, weak and divided. Our first Governor-General, Lord Mountbatten, and the Congress leadership all agreed that I was perhaps the best suited to tackle this Herculean task. Gandhiji told me, "The problem of the states is so difficult that only you can solve it," which was both a compliment and a great burden of responsibility. So, as the new Home Minister and Minister for States, I got to work immediately. I had a brilliant civil servant, VP Menon, as my right-hand man. Together, we approached each of the princely rulers. My strategy was a mix of diplomacy and candor, a carrot, and if needed, a stick. First, I appealed to their patriotism and good sense. I told the princes, "Your states are part of this land of India. Staying separate will only invite anarchy or perhaps aggression from outside. It's your duty to join this great Indian union we are building." I assured them that in free India, they and their people would prosper more, and that we did not aim to strip them of all privilege. In fact, we offered very generous terms. They could merge with India and still retain their titles, some privileges, and receive annual pensions, the privy purse, for their sustenance. It wasn't about money alone, but it showed we were not out for vengeance or confiscation. We wanted a partnership. Many rulers were won over in personal meetings. I hosted luncheons, teas, informal gatherings to win their confidence. I spoke their language. I respected their pride, but also made them see the inevitable, that independence from India was an illusion for them. Their people would not accept autocracy once British power was gone, and if they tried to stay separate, they might face internal revolts or isolation. At the same time, I subtly made it known that the Indian government would not shy away from using force if a state resorted to mischief. We couldn't have pockets of anarchy. I set a firm deadline. We asked them to sign the Instrument of Accession by August 15th, 1947.
It's astounding. By the deadline, all but 3 of the 565 states agreed to accede to India willingly. Only 3 holdouts remained: Jammu and Kashmir, Hyderabad, and Junagadh. Those were tricky for different reasons. How did you deal with each?
Let's take Junagadh first. Junagadh was a small, princely state on the coast of Gujarat, my home region, with a predominantly Hindu population, over 80%, but a Muslim Nawab ruler. This Nawab, egged on by his Dewan minister, Sir Shah Nawaz Bhutto, did something absurd. He announced Unigad's accession to Pakistan. This was absurd because Unigad was completely surrounded by Indian territory, hundreds of miles from Pakistan. It was like a little island in the Indian Union, potentially becoming enemy territory. The people there were against it and started protesting immediately. I took a tough stand. I told Pakistan, "This won't stand. You must annul this accession," even as I privately communicated with Unigad's officials to come to their senses. To show we meant business, I sent Indian Army troops to secure some surrounding small territories that owed allegiance to Junagad. Seeing our resolve and facing local rebellion, the people of Junagad formed a provisional government, the Arzi Hukumat, against the Nawab. The Nawab and his advisors fled to Karachi in Pakistan. They literally ran away. Our forces then marched into Junagad to restore order on my orders. Later, we held a plebiscite, a vote in Junagad, and an overwhelming 99.5% of the people voted to join India. That chapter closed swiftly and legally, with Junagad's populace choosing India.
Junagad's integration was quick and decisive. But you hinted to the public that Hyderabad was an even bigger concern for you than Kashmir at that time.
Yes, Hyderabad was the largest and richest princely state, right in the heart of India. It covered most of the Deccan, with a population of over 16 million, mostly Hindu, but ruled by the Nizam, a Muslim monarch. The Nizam of Hyderabad, Osman Ali Khan, harbored hopes of independence, or even alliance with Pakistan, despite being landlocked deep inside India. This was dangerous. An independent Hyderabad would have been like a cancer in the belly of India, possibly encouraging other princely rulers to defy us. The Nizam was delaying and defying. He had a private militia called the Razakars, led by a fanatical man, Qasim Razvi, who were committing atrocities, terrorizing the populace, and also arming themselves heavily. There were even raids and clashes on the borders of Hyderabad and India. It was intolerable. We tried negotiations. Lord Mountbatten attempted a diplomatic solution with a standstill agreement to buy time. But the Nizam kept prevaricating. One day, he'd seem to relent. The next, he'd back off. Meanwhile, the Razakars grew bolder, threatening genocide of Hyderabad's Hindus and creating chaos. By September 1948, a year after independence, things reached a head. The Nizam would not see reason, and Gandhiji was no longer with us. Bapu had been assassinated by then, in January 1948. So, with the Prime Minister's agreement, we decided to take police action, a military intervention, codenamed Operation Polo. We moved as soon as circumstances allowed. Actually, coincidentally, Muhammad Ali Jinnah of Pakistan died on 11 September 1948. 2 days later, on 13th September, we sent our forces into Hyderabad from all sides. It was swift. In barely 5 days, the Razakar resistance collapsed. The Nizam's troops surrendered. By 17 September 1948, the Nizam announced a ceasefire and agreed to accede to India. Hyderabad was integrated and would soon be reorganized as an Indian state. We were careful to avoid civilian casualties and welcomed the Nizam to stay on as Raj Pramukh, ceremonial governor, for a while to save face.
Thus, Hyderabad, the stubborn princely giant, fell in line. Now, what about Kashmir? That was, and still is, a complicated story. You weren't the point man on Kashmir initially, since Nehru had a special interest there. But you played a crucial role when Pakistan invaded Kashmir in 1947, right?
Kashmir's situation was unique. The Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir, Hari Singh, was indecisive. He ruled a majority Muslim population, and he delayed choosing whether to join India or Pakistan in 1947. My view initially was that if the Maharaja didn't want to join us, and given the geography, perhaps Kashmir could go to Pakistan to avoid trouble. But that was before Pakistan chose the path of aggression. In October 1947, Pakistan sent tribals and its own soldiers in disguise across the border to attack and annex Kashmir, a blatant invasion. They almost reached Srinagar. At that point, the Maharaja hastily agreed to accede to India, asking for our military help. Now, Pandit Nehru was very emotionally invested in Kashmir. It was his home region and wanted to handle it. But as Home Minister, I insisted we send troops immediately once the accession was signed. There was no question. We had to defend Kashmir as Indian territory. We flew our soldiers in under perilous conditions to Srinagar. Many of them fought gallantly to push back the raiders. I coordinated closely with our army commanders and Defense Minister Baldev Singh to rush forces, weapons, supplies. We even laid out a strategic road to connect Srinagar to Pathankot in Punjab within months to secure logistics. We managed to repel the invaders from much of Kashmir, though they held on to a portion which remains under Pakistani control to this day. Where I differed with Panditji was on the issue of taking the matter to the United Nations. He, on Lord Mountbatten's advice, referred the conflict to the UN in January 1948, hoping for an impartial resolution. I was strongly against that. I felt this was a domestic matter. Pakistan had illegally attacked, we were in the right, and involving international arbiters would only complicate things. And indeed, the issue got stuck in international politics. A ceasefire was called in 1949, leaving Kashmir divided. I always felt if we had been allowed to push a bit more militarily, we might have reclaimed the whole of Kashmir. But it is what it is.
Hindsight is 20/20, as they say. Kashmir became a thorny legacy issue. But no one can deny, Sardar, that thanks to you, 565 princely states were peacefully integrated, and India emerged in 1947-48 as a united sovereign nation from north to south, east to west. Many have compared you to Bismarck, who unified Germany, except you used persuasion far more than war. Truly, you were the unifier of India.
I did what was needed for the hour. India's unity was my mission. If I'm compared to Bismarck, I'd only say I prefer the comparison to be qualified. No blood and iron if avoidable, only at last resort. I am proud that most of the princes signed on happily. Force was the exception, not the rule.
Beyond political integration, you also played a huge role in shaping independent India's government and policies in those early years. You were part of the Constituent Assembly drafting the Constitution, and you championed the civil services that run our administration. In fact, you are often called the patron saint of India's civil servants. Could you tell us about that?
Yes, I was deeply involved in the Constituent Assembly's committees. I chaired committees on fundamental rights, on minorities, on provincial constitutions. I worked hard to ensure that our Constitution would guarantee equality for all citizens, with no special separate electorates by religion as the British had done. Those had divided us enough. We abolished the idea of separate electorates. Instead, we provided safeguards within a unified framework. One area very close to my heart was the civil services. I firmly believed India needed a strong, impartial administrative machinery to hold it together. I fought to include provisions in the Constitution that secure the tenure and integrity of civil servants. The old Indian Civil Service, ICS, under the British, was elitist, but had produced a steel frame that kept India functioning. I wanted the new India to retain that steel frame, but now in service of the people and democracy. We created the All India Services, like the Indian Administrative Service, IAS, and Indian Police Service, IPS, to replace the colonial ICS. Some politicians thought independent India should do away with these, fearing they might be too independent. But I argued passionately that without an independent, merit-based civil service, India would fragment. I said it in the assembly. You will not have a united India if you do not have good all-India services, which have the independence to speak their minds. Remove them, and I see nothing but chaos.
Those words were prophetic. The All India Services did become the backbone of our administration, the steel frame, as you put it. And indeed, to this day, you're revered by civil servants. I recall reading that when you passed away, some 1,500 officers from the civil and police services gathered to mourn you and pledged to carry on your work with loyalty. That shows the impact you had on that institution.
That gesture moved me deeply, even in the great beyond, I must say. If I may break the fourth wall a bit, I always told young civil service officers, be impartial, be fearless, serve the people, not politicians. I warned them never to fall prey to communal biases or corruption. To see them honor me in such a way was very humbling and satisfying.
You were also a pragmatist in economic matters. There's a famous story about how you helped guide a cooperative movement that led to something as everyday as the milk we drink. The founding of the Amul Dairy Cooperative in Gujarat.
Ah, you mean the Kaira District Milk Cooperative, which indeed became Amul, one of the biggest dairy cooperatives in the world. That happened around 1945-46 in my home region. Some dairy farmers from Kaira came to me and complained. They produced plenty of milk, but the middlemen and private companies were exploiting them, paying them a pittance, and then selling the milk at high prices. I advised them, why not organize yourselves, cut out the middlemen? I guided them to form a cooperative union of milk producers. With some effort, they did, collecting milk, processing it collectively, and marketing it under their own brand. This eventually became the Amul Cooperative, which helped ignite India's White Revolution years later, making us one of the largest milk producers in the world. I'm quite proud of that little intervention. It empowered farmers and consumers both.
That's incredible. From freedom fighter to founding father of India's milk industry. Your contributions spanned so many fields, Sardar. Let's not forget culture. You oversaw the restoration of the Somnath Temple as well, an ancient temple in Gujarat that had been in ruins. Despite some opposition, you felt it was important for national pride. Isn't that right?
Yes, the Temple of Somnath. It had been destroyed by invaders centuries ago and left as rubble. I believed that restoring it would symbolize the resurgence of India's heritage and honor. In 1948, I pledged that we would rebuild Somnath Temple. I set up a trust and even personally oversaw parts of the reconstruction plan.
Unfortunately, I did not live to see it completed. It was finished in 1951, after I had passed, and President Rajendra Prasad inaugurated it. But I was glad to have set that project in motion. It wasn't about religion per se. To me, it was about righting a historical wrong and showcasing that independent India would stand tall and confident in its own culture while being secular and inclusive.
That's beautifully put. Sardar Patel, by late 1950, India was standing on its feet, united and sovereign, thanks in no small part to your leadership. But then, tragically, you fell ill. You had already endured a heart attack earlier, I believe, and then you suffered another in December 1950, which proved fatal. You left this world on 15 December 1950, at the age of 75. It was a tremendous loss for the young nation.
I suppose my time had come. I had pushed my health a lot in those final years, rushing from crisis to crisis. Perhaps the strain was too much. Yes, I had a massive heart attack. I remember being at Birla House in Bombay. Then not much else of this world.
The entire nation mourned you. Prime Minister Nehru declared a week of national mourning in your honor. Your funeral in Mumbai saw a crowd of over 1 million people, friends, colleagues, common citizens, all there to bid you farewell. And as I mentioned, the civil servants, your beloved steel frame, gathered by the thousands in Delhi to pay their respects and pledged to serve India with the dedication you inspired. It was an unprecedented show of respect for a leader.
I am touched to know that. I heard that even leaders from around the world sent condolences. The UN Secretary-General Trygve Lie, President Sukarno of Indonesia, Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan of Pakistan, and even Clement Attlee, the British PM, all paid tribute. It seems the world recognized what we were able to do here in India. But all the homage truly belongs to the people of India, not to me. If they see me as a symbol of unity, then I am grateful that I could serve as that.
You certainly are seen as a symbol of unity. In independent India's history, you are celebrated as one of the greatest sons of the soil, Loh Purush, the Iron Man. In 1991, decades after your death, the nation honored you with the BharatRatna, our highest civilian award. And in recent years, the admiration for you has only grown. On your birth anniversary, October 31st, we now observe National Unity Day each year. And as we mentioned in the introduction, a gigantic statue, the Statue of Unity, was erected in Gujarat in 2018, soaring 182 meters high, the tallest statue in the world. It depicts you, Sardar, looking over the Narmada River, a testament to the colossal role you played in building India. It's truly a breathtaking monument, and a fitting one, I think, for a titan like you.
A Statue of Unity. For me, that is an overwhelming honor. To know that my countrymen remember me with such affection and regard, I have no words. Unity was always my foremost goal. If my memory serves to inspire unity even today, then I feel my life's work has been blessed.
Sardar, as we come to the close of this conversation, what message would you like to leave us with? Especially to young Indians watching or listening who look up to you as an inspiration. What would you say to them about your journey and the future of the nation?
I would tell them, always cherish and protect India's unity. We are a nation of extraordinary diversity, different languages, religions, cultures, and that is our strength, not a weakness. But manpower without unity is not a strength, as I have said. Unless united properly, it cannot become a spiritual power. When we harmonize our differences toward a common purpose, we create an unbreakable force. I would remind them that the freedom and unity they enjoy were earned by immense sacrifices. My journey, from a small village to the freedom struggle to uniting the princely states, taught me that with determination, integrity, and unity, even the impossible becomes possible. There will be times when our nation faces internal disputes or external threats. In those times, remember the lesson of Kedah, of Bardoli, of 1947. If Indians stand together as one people, no challenge is too great. Above all, I would urge the younger generation to serve the nation selflessly. Whether you are a politician, an official, a farmer, a doctor, or an engineer, whatever your role, do it with honesty and with the nation's interest at heart. I lived by the mantra of duty and discipline. I had no craving for power. When the time came, I even stepped aside from the race for prime minister because Gandhiji wished it so. Personal ambitions must never trump the greater good. If my life has any message, it is this: work hard, work honestly, and put India first. In our unity lies our strength. Never allow anyone to divide you, not by religion, not by caste, not by language. We forged a nation out of fragments. It is the sacred duty of each Indian to keep that nation whole and make it ever stronger and more prosperous, so that the dreams of our freedom fighters are fulfilled.
Thank you, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, for those wise and inspiring words. and for sharing your life story with such candor and emotion. It has been truly like sitting with history itself, feeling every triumph and trial that you experienced. Listeners, today we have walked alongside the Iron Man of India, hearing how a single determined soul can alter the destiny of millions. From a farmer's son in Nadiad to the unifier of India, Vallabhbhai Patel's life reminds us that nation-building requires vision, courage, and an unyielding commitment to unity. Sardar, the India of today stands firmly on the foundations you helped lay. We remain forever grateful for your leadership and sacrifice.
It was my honor to serve. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. May we continue to be inspired by Sardar Patel's legacy for generations to come. Thank you all for joining us on this extraordinary journey through history. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's legacy reminds us that unity and determination are the pillars of a strong nation. If his story inspires you, share this episode with friends and family. Let's keep his ideals alive by working together for a united and prosperous India. Jai Hind. Bharat Mata Ki Jai.